this is what we face at the Dakar Rally. And the reason I stand before you today is because I have seemingly pushed boundaries of what is possible on a motorcycle.
Getting up while y'all just snooze. While you make breakfast, man, I'm on the move. I'm the first one in and the last one out. Whoever owns the place gotta drag me out. You put it run for your life. You another big. I don't make a sound when I strike. You better just run for your life. For your life.
So imagine if you took a road trip from Bangalore to Shanghai. But now imagine that there are no roads. It's just terrain like this, desert sand, riverbed, rocks, and everything that nature can throw at you. And that is what the Dakar Rally is. It's arguably the toughest motorcycle event in the world. It spans 14 days and it covers a whopping 8,000 kilometers. Does it sound tough? Well, it gets tougher. I raced in a category called the Mallet Moto, and Mallet means a box in French. And that's the box that's given to us competitors, and we are expected to have everything that we need for the 14 days of rally racing into this single box. So the concept is very simple. You have a motorcycle, you have a box, and you have the rider. There are roughly 300 to 400 vehicles that compete in this rally, although there's only probably 30 people that compete in this category. The rest of them have service teams behind them that help them get through the day. So typically we race around 600 to 700 kilometers in a day, come back to a makeshift camp. It's called a bivouac in rally terms. This camp keeps shifting. Every 600, 700 kilometers it moves to a different place, but it's generally in the middle of nowhere. So for an average competitor, the guy comes in after 600 kilometers of hard racing, hands over his motorcycle to his service crew, and the crew works on the motorcycle and then has it ready for him the next day. And this allows that rider the time to rest and recover. It allows him time to get some good meals, go to a physio, get a massage. For us, there are no such luxuries because we have to work on the motorcycles ourselves. So after a hard day of riding, we come in and we spend another 3-4 hours working on the motorcycle, having it ready for next day. Sometimes it's more than 3-4 hours because if we have a crash or we damage the motorcycle in any way, there are some leaks, we got to fix them too. While your normal guy comes back and has the luxury of a motor van or a camper, the Mallet Moto guys are expected to pitch their own tent and then pack it up again the next morning. So this is what our accommodation looks like for 14 days. So for us, it is more than a race. It's like survival 101. You know, it's everything that life can throw at you in these 14 days. But here's the best part. To compete in the Dakar Rally, it costs you around 70 lakh rupees to put together a campaign. And that's just for one race for 14 days. So what really drives us to make these clinically insane decisions? And what drives any endurance athlete to push beyond boundaries of self-preservation? It's really what the sport teaches you. It teaches you humility, it teaches you courage, it teaches you maintaining a positive attitude, but more importantly, it teaches you resilience, which is the most important quality that I have learned through rally racing. I'm not sure if rally racing is my life purpose. It's my life purpose for now, but it wasn't my life purpose 20 years ago. I was doing something completely different, and probably 10 years from now, I'll be doing something completely different again. But that's the great part about life. We get chances to reinvent ourselves if we are willing to, and we can keep reinventing ourselves as many times as we want. So, I grew up in a middle-class family in a small town of Kolhapur, and very typically, a lot was expected of me, good grades, excellence in sports, parents want everything. I grew up playing a lot of sports. I played table tennis, I played cricket, I represented my district in these sports. But once I got to 10th standard, the big question that is asked to each and every Indian student, science, arts, or commerce, right? That seems to be the life question that we all have to deal with. And growing up in a very safety-oriented environment, middle-class family, my parents are bankers, there's always that thing about the safe choice. And I went ahead and made that safe choice. I picked up science, which meant that all my sports took a back seat. I went out to sea. And life at sea wasn't really that easy either. As a cadet, there's a lot again expected of you. Life is tough. And I have to admit, I questioned my decision more than once. I was very close to actually calling it quits as well. But then I decided that giving up was not an option. I had chosen this path and I wanted to stick to it. So I flipped the narrative in my head and I set myself a very lofty goal. A goal that I would have a singular purpose in life. And for that moment, that singular purpose was I wanted to become a chief engineer before I turned 30. So chief engineer is the highest rank you can achieve in the engineering department out at sea. So I buttoned down, I put in all the hard work, all the hours, and at 29, I became one of the youngest chief engineers in the fleet. The only thing that kept me going was that I had that singular purpose. And the sacrifices I had to make was that I had to give up everything else. But that's how singular purpose works. You give up everything else and you stick to the path or the passion that you have chosen. The next 3 years though, after I had achieved this, I was only trying to ask myself, what next? Because I had lost that purpose. I had nothing to look forward to really. I had become a chief engineer. And these 3 years, I went on a total binge. I was young with good considerable amount of money, and this is what I became. 3 years from a very fit guy to this. And this was something that was really upsetting me, that this is what I had become at this point of time. Then one fine day, I went with a friend to a local race, and it had me hooked. This was a very potent mix for me. I discovered that competitive streak again, which I had missed for the last 10 years. And I love riding motorcycles. So this was like a perfect combination for me. So I decided to take up cross-country rally racing. But I just didn't want to take it up as, okay, I want to race. I needed that singular purpose again. And that's how my goal to race at the Dakar was born. At that point of time, there was only one Indian athlete who had made it to the Dakar. And this was a guy who had so much of motorsport background. So the question to me was, would I be able to make it to the Dakar in 5 years with no motorsport background at all? And that was my newfound singular purpose. I wanted to put all my energy behind it. And so began my life as a cross-country athlete. But I started this when I was 33. This is a time where injuries take so much longer to heal. The ideal age to start motorsport is around 6 or 7 years old when you're that young. But age didn't matter. I wanted to reinvent myself. So no matter what it was, I was going to follow the singular purpose that I had in life. And that is something that we can take away from this really, that it's never too late to reinvent yourself. As long as you can be resilient and follow your passion. But how do we cultivate this mindset? Are we born with resilience, or can we actually learn it as we go? And is resilience only for endurance athletes? Definitely not. Building resilience should be a life goal for everyone. Progression in everything that we do is never linear. There are always going to be setbacks. And it's the quality of resilience that help us stay on the path and push through. So of all the qualities that I have learned from this sport, resilience is the single most one that I love. So what is my thought process when it comes to resilience, or how do I make decisions when I'm faced with setbacks? So here's a quick story. During the Dakar rally, on day 5, I crashed over a dune and suffered a head injury. Medical help was quick to arrive. I was airlifted in the chopper, and so was my motorcycle. Taken to the nearest highway where an ambulance was waiting for me. I was strapped and immobilized into a stretcher and taken to the nearest hospital 4 hours away. They just had to confirm if there was any brain injury apart from the physical bruises that I had sustained. It took close to 4 hours to get to the hospital, and then another 4 hours to get the CT scans back. Thankfully, I had no brain hemorrhage or any concussion, and the CT scans were clear. But the doctors still wanted to be sure, so I was advised to stay under observation for the next 48 hours, and then they would repeat these scans. Now, the 48 hours that I was waiting for the second set of scans, I was only thinking about one thing, and hoping that if the scans came clear, would I go back to racing? Because I had technically only lost 2 days yet, and there's still 4 or 5 days left of the race. So, 72 hours after my crash, I was standing outside this medical tent, hoping that the doctors would give me a clearance. And the exact words from the doctors were, "You're cleared, but we don't recommend it." I only heard the first part. I ignored the second. The next step for me was to get my motorcycle back. It had also suffered some damage. I fixed it up quickly, and then I was back at it, lining up again. So what was my thought process? I've been asked a lot, how did I decide after going through that traumatic experience to go back racing immediately? And this is the part that was very clear to me, and the decision was very easy to me. It's because the alternative outcome of not trying was simply not acceptable. And that's how I look at resilience. It's when you push through because giving up is not the option, and the alternative outcome that it presents is not acceptable to you. That's my definition of resilience. It's why motorsport athletes keep going back to a sport that puts us into hospital beds more so often. I hope that as you go through life, discover your passion and have opportunities to build resilience, you tackle these questions the same way. Not give up and build resilience, because it is that one quality that will see you through life and take you to the paths of success. Thank you.